Welcome back to another deep dive. I'm really glad you're joining us today because we are looking at something that honestly impacts pretty much every single person listening.
Yeah, it's a massive topic.
It really is. So today our mission is to explore a really profoundly important set of ideas from a creator named Liat Portal. And just so you know, that is pronounced Lee at Portal.
Right. And we're specifically looking at her ongoing project, which is called The Liat Show.
Yeah, and I mean, to even call it a show is kind of underselling it, right? It's more of this continuous body of work. She publishes it in these intricate sets and series.
Exactly. It's essentially a multi-domain storytelling universe. She takes systems, AI, supply chains, culture, and, lived observation and weaves them all together.
Which is fascinating, but right at the core of all that work is this one central problem, and it's something everyone is debating right now. Like you see it on the news constantly.
The whole panic over critical thinking.
Yes. Everyone is hyper-focused on this one question. They're asking, is AI weakening human critical thinking? Are we all just losing our ability to think?
And the really wild part about Liat Portal's work is she steps in and says, actually, that is entirely the wrong question.
Wait, really? The wrong question?
Yeah, because thinking isn't disappearing, not at all. It's relocating.
Oh, wow. Relocating. That's a great way to put it. It's kind of like, I mean, imagine everyone is standing around this dried up riverbed,
Yep.
right? And they're absolutely panicking. They're like, oh no, water doesn't exist anymore.
Right, well, they completely missed the fact that the river just, carved a massive new channel like a mile away.
Exactly. We're so stressed out looking at the empty dirt that we don't even see where the current actually went.
So to find where that current went, where human thinking actually relocated, we really have to look at what has changed in our reality, like structurally.
Okay, so where do we start with that?
Well, historically, for basically centuries, critical thinking meant evaluating content. Think about how you were taught in school. Information was really scarce.
Right, you had to go to a library, dig through encyclopedias.
Exactly. And it was all controlled by these massive institutions, universities, publishers. So your job was just to evaluate the argument. You checked the sources, you looked at the visible chain of authority, humans wrote it, and humans judged it.
But obviously that is not the world we live in today.
No, not at all. Today, AI completely changes those evaluation criteria.
Right.
Because we aren't just evaluating information anymore. We have to evaluate the systems that generate the content.
So instead of just reading a paragraph and asking, is this well written or persuasive, we now have to ask what invisible probabilistic math actually produced this.
Yes, that's exactly it.
It honestly feels like we have to inspect the factory now, not just, case the food coming off the conveyor belt.
And that is incredibly hard to do because these AI systems are basically black boxes. They are mathematically optimized for fluency. They just predict the next most likely word so that it sounds completely authoritative.
So the bottleneck has totally shifted. It's no longer hard to create information. The scarcity is our actual capacity to judge it.
Right. But if we know we need to evaluate these systems, you might wonder, why is it so hard to do in practice?
Yeah, because, we're aware of it. So why do we keep falling for the illusion?
It really comes down to the lived experience. When you use these tools day to day, the answers arrive instantly. And they don't just feel like rough drafts, they feel incredibly complete.
Oh, totally. You get bullet points, bold text, a nice little summary at the end.
Right. And that speed, combined with that fluency and the complete lack of transparency, it creates this really dangerous illusion. Historically, doing research had friction, and that friction forced you to pause.
And in that pause, that's where the verification happened. You had time to think, wait, does this actually make sense?
Exactly. But AI entirely removes that pause.
But let me push back on that a little bit. On behalf of anyone listening who might be thinking, well, wait, isn't removing friction exactly what we want?
Sure, everybody loves efficiency.
Right. Like, I love getting things done faster. Why is losing that delay such a bad thing?
Well, because when the delay disappears, your acceptance of the information becomes automatic. The cognitive erosion Liat Portal talks about, it doesn't happen because we suddenly became stupid. It happens because our workflow completely skips the moment where judgment used to live.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So we're just outsourcing the thinking process without even realizing it.
Exactly. And this automatic acceptance, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually the third step in this recognizable historical pattern of how humans interact with tools.
Okay, walk me through that progression. What's step one?
Step one is tools that just accelerate work. Think of a calculator or, a spreadsheet. The work gets done way faster, but the professional judgment completely stays with the human.
Right, the calculator doesn't know what taxes you're supposed to file. You still have to do the thinking.
Exactly. Then you hit stage 2, which is tools that embed skills.
Like what? Like autofocus on a camera?
Yes, or GPS, or even AutoCAD for engineers. The system actually takes over a specific skill, and over time, humans lose the ability to do that thing manually.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what happened when we got GPS. We completely forgot how to navigate our own cities. We just blindly follow the blue line.
Right. Which brings us to the AI era. Stage 3. These tools aren't just navigating maps. They are actively participating in human judgment.
So we are basically handing over our internal GPS for reasoning.
Precisely. And when you remove humans from the messy process of doing the work, the struggling, the drafting, they lose the pathway through which real understanding is formed.
Which leads right into what I think is the most terrifying but also most fascinating part of this whole deep dive, this concept of authority drift.
Yes, authority drift. This is crucial.
Can you define that for us? Because I feel like it explains so much of what I see in corporate environments right now.
Absolutely. Authority drift is the gradual shift of perceived legitimacy from humans to automated systems. It happens quietly. It builds up through repeated reliance on system outputs.
Because, as the sources say, authority naturally drifts toward whatever resolves uncertainty the fastest.
Exactly. And to really ground this, Liat Portal gives this incredible example, the outage meeting.
Oh, I loved this part. It paints such a clear picture.
Right. So picture this. A major sauce company has a massive system outage. Everyone is freaking out in the war room.
Customers are angry, money is burning, high stress.
High stress, massive uncertainty. And their AI triage system spits out a recommendation. It says, hey, the root cause is database X.
But there are two senior human engineers in the room, and they look at their own data and they say, no, the AI is wrong. The real problem is network gateway Y.
Exactly. Now, what actually changes in that room? The humans are still applying critical thinking. They are still using their expertise. But structurally, the power dynamic just shifted.
Yeah. Because when the humans disagree with the system, they're the ones expected to justify it. Someone is going to say, well, the AI says it's database X, so you better have a really good reason to override it.
The burden of proof completely flipped. No one ever held a vote to make the AI the boss.
Right.
But in that room, the AI's output becomes the default truth. And suddenly, the human engineers are basically on trial for daring to disagree with a machine.
That is so subtle, but so terrifying. Because it's just human nature, right?
Yeah.
If you go with the AI and you're wrong, you can blame the software. But if you override the AI and you're wrong, you're fired.
Exactly. So the path of least resistance is just to agree with the system. And since we are now operating in the structure where human judgment is secondary to system output, our whole definition of critical thinking has to change.
It can't just be about evaluating a written argument anymore.
No. No. Critical thinking requires what Liat Portal calls infrastructure literacy. You have to understand the systems, you have to recognize the dependencies, and you need to track exactly where judgment actually resides in your workflow.
And the sources point out that generalists are actually uniquely good at this. Why is that?
Well, specialists go really deep into one domain. They fit perfectly into a recruiter's checklist. But generalists, because their work touches so many different areas, they're incredibly sensitive to the boundaries between systems.
Oh, I see. So they notice when an AI that was trained for one thing is suddenly being used for something entirely different.
Exactly. They spot when an AI's underlying assumptions completely fail because the context changed. They see the whole architecture.
Okay, but if you're listening right now, you might be thinking, look, I'm not a software engineer. I'm not a generalist systems thinker. I'm just a person trying to do my job. How do I actually apply this?
Right. How do you protect your own judgment?
Yeah, because we can't just throw our laptops in the ocean and refuse to use AI. That's not realistic.
No, and nobody is telling you to reject AI. Liat Portal actually provides some really clear, actionable directives for how to redesign how we interact with it.
Grounded guidance. I like that. What's the first step?
First, you have to aggressively separate generation from evaluation. This is a big one. Do not use the exact same system to generate an answer and then ask that same system to verify if it's correct.
Oh man, people do that all the time. They have the chatbot write an essay and then ask the chatbot, hey, did you make any mistakes?
Right. It's like letting a student grade their own final exam. You need an independent auditor, even if that auditor is just your own brain.
Okay, what's the second piece of advice?
Deliberately slow down. You have to actively inject friction back into decisions that feel suspiciously instant. You have to intentionally reclaim the pause.
It's basically about putting speed bumps in your own daily workflow, just so your brain doesn't fall asleep at the wheel while the AI drives.
Exactly. And the third directive is maybe the most important. Form an independent view first.
Before you even touch the AI.
Yes. Before you even open the prompt box, have a baseline thought. Form a hypothesis. Just jot down 3 bullet points of what you think the answer is.
Because if you start with a blank slate, the AI just builds the whole frame for you. You don't even know what it left out. But if you have your own idea first, you have something to actually push back against.
Precisely. You have an anchor.
That makes total sense. So looking at everything we've talked about today on this deep dive, we started with this massive shift from evaluating content to evaluating systems.
Right, because of that missing friction that pushes us into dependency.
Yeah, moving from tools that accelerate work all the way to tools that participate in our judgment. And that paves the way for authority drift, which just quietly steals our legitimacy.
It all leads back to the core question of the AI era. And it's a question you should be asking yourself every single day. Where is judgment actually happening?
Are you the one deciding, or are you just confirming what a machine already framed for you?
Exactly.
If you want to keep exploring this, and I highly recommend you do, a really good starting point is just to search for the term authority drift.
Yeah, you'll see how it's playing out everywhere.
But to get the full picture, you should really explore the entire interconnected universe of The Layette Show. You can follow Layette Portal's continuous body of work on Substack, which is a great hub for it, or read her pieces on Medium, LinkedIn, and you can access the deeper series on Patreon. Just calmly take the time to follow the story as it unfolds.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone listening with one final kind of provocative thought to just, mull over on your own time.
That's right.
If authority naturally drifts to the system that resolves uncertainty the fastest, what happens to our society when complex, deeply nuanced human problems are forced into simple, instant, machine-generated answers just to satisfy our addiction to speed?
That is definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.